Hi, welcome to the National Critics' Choice Online News. And today, folks, we have a new author on our show, and that is Miss Dianne Wolfer. She's going to talk about her new book, Light Horse Boy. Miss Dianne Wolfer, welcome to Singapore.
Thank you.
Please tell us more about your book and the history behind this book and why the title Light Horse Boy is been named.
Okay, thank you. Light Horse Boy, it's interesting with the title then, because my previous book that it's a partner to is called Lighthouse Girl, it's really common for everybody to get muddled with the titles of Light Horse Boy and Lighthouse Girl. In fact, when it was launched in Western Australia, the governor launched it, which was an honour, and he even made the same mistake, so we all felt better about that. Lighthouse Girl I started writing it in 2005, and it took 4 years to do the research. And it started when I read a newspaper article about a girl who was 100 years ago in 1914, when war was declared, World War I, and there was a girl living out on a lighthouse. And her father was the lighthouse keeper, her mother had died earlier that year, and so when young men from all across Australia signed up, they all gathered in Albany, the town where I live, and she was signalling to them using semaphore, and she relayed their messages back to their families in the eastern states. So that book has been successful and done well, but while I was researching that book, I read a lot about the horses that went to World War I, and I learned that there were 360,000 horses from Australia travelled by ship during the course of the war, and they served with the soldiers, and of all those horses, the thousands of horses that went, only one came home. So that sparked my curiosity. I wanted to find out more about that one horse, and so there's a crossover character, so one character is in both books, and so I wanted to find out more about those horses and also the animals that the soldiers took as mascots. So that's how it started. This one really came out of Lighthouse Girl.
Now, speaking about history itself, what were the challenges that you face in gathering all this information, and how does this information, these historical pictures especially that you gathered from, how do the families feel about it?
It's interesting. The research is what took such a long time, and I guess we're lucky now living in a digital age, I suppose, that I could do so much research on the internet. And these photos are mainly from the Australian War Memorial, which is a huge organisation with thousands and thousands of photographs on file. So you can go in and type in words, keywords, key wars, what you would like, and a lot of images come up. So those photographs have been donated to the War Memorial, and I think a lot of people are encouraged in Australia now, if someone passes away, then they check that some of these old things that we used to think weren't valued as much and would be thrown away, that be careful if there are photographs or old diaries, then if you don't want them, or if no children or grandchildren want them, then please pass them on to a museum, because for someone like me as a writer, it's fascinating to go back and read all those accounts. So the main character in my book, he's not a real person, but he's based on reading lots of articles and reading lots of diaries and then creating something from my imagination.
Now, from the pictures that you have put together, and the graphics and so on, how long did that take you to gather all these, this authentic information, especially visuals?
It took a long time.
And,
Yeah.
was there a copyright or a trademark issue where you had to ask them to publish it?
Yes, definitely. I had to actually pay to use these because they're donated to museums. They have a fee for usage, just to use it, but the other one is to give it to prepare it so that you can use it for a book. So there's a 2-part fee, and so for each image in the book, it was about 85 Australian dollars just to use it for a limited print run, which with 50 photographs becomes quite expensive in the first instance. So it was unexpected, because in Lighthouse Girl the photographs were from collections in the town where I live, and they just donated it. They said, as long as you're acknowledged in the back, then it's fine to use it. So this time we were caught a little bit by surprise about the user fee, but of course they need to make money to cover their costs, I understand. So it's really important to acknowledge who is the source, and for me, if I'm using a real person, or if someone, because it's what I kind of call faction, it's fiction, but it's based on fact, so it's kind of a mixing. So wherever there's something that is genuinely historical, then I always acknowledge in the back who is a real person, what's from my imagination. So
now, from your experience writing, the other book for girls and the other book now for boys, what were the main differences that you see in terms of content? And moving forward, what are the three key things that you have learned from this experience writing this wonderful book, which now is called White Horse Boy?
okay, I think as a writer, you generally, I choose a story that just interests me and write it, but it's not really until later in the process that you think, who would, of course publishers are very interested in who to market it to, but for me it's the story. If it captures my imagination, that's what I want to write. But I was really pleased that this book is far more of interest to boys, because some of my earlier books perhaps are more for girls. What I'm surprised is that it's really a very wide readership, in that girls often like horses, so there's that element that they're enjoying the horses, but boys like the adventure of the I don't know why young men always think going off to war will be an adventure, and yet even with our internet and televisions they see the horror of it, but 100 years ago the young men didn't know about the horror. So I think young men are attracted to adventure, and I guess finding themselves as a putting themselves up against what can I survive, what can't I survive. So, but I'm also surprised that there's a lot of older people love the book, in grandparents who are 60s, 70s. They really like it, I think because it taps into a time that is closer to living memory for them. So their father or their grandfather might have told stories about the war, and so they can remember those stories. And actually the illustrator I hadn't realised how old he is, but he was a baby, or he was a very young boy during the war, and he said he remembers his father's boots as being these huge big boots. And so in the illustrations, quite a few of the illustrations, you're looking in and the first thing you view is a boot. So for him that evoked these memories of his dad in that time, so even though it's a different war.
How has writing Light Horse Boy and Light Horse Girl given you a different view or perspective in life? And how has that changed your philosophy in believing that there is probably a second chance for mankind to appreciate life itself?
Oh, okay, that's a big question. I learned a lot that I didn't know factually about that time 100 years ago and the different countries that were involved in the conflicts. I find war as a topic, my family doesn't have a military background. It's quite unusual that I am drawn to writing about conflict and war. But I think in war you find the very best and the worst in a person. So people who might be the quiet one, who you don't expect to do something very selfless and courageous, do that, and others who are perhaps louder ones, perhaps when it comes to the important moment, are not as brave as you think, or people reach within themselves and find extraordinary courage. So I've read so many smaller stories. I'm really interested in the small stories within a big historical framework, and I think it's those smaller stories that I'm drawn to, and I've learned a lot about courage and sacrifice and bravery, and also some people who didn't have the right, the good qualities that came out. So those are general human characteristics, I think.
If you would have a choice, would you add in more chapters for Lighthouse Boy as well as Lighthouse Girl?
Yes, I think it's funny because Lighthouse Girl began as a picture book that was going to be 32 pages, but as it turned out, the story became too big and so needed to be made into a 120-page picture book. But with this book, it became so much more than what I expected. It could have been double the length, except my editor, my publisher was no, we can't do that. And so I had to really be very strong and ruthless, and it was sad so much of my writing I had to put away, and fantastic old photographs that I had to say, no, you can't be in this story. And so, I could have easily done twice as much.
So, what's next for you? Do you plan to write the next book, maybe a sequel? Is there any possibility?
Well, it's interesting that you ask, because before I would have said no, not possible, no more war for me. I really want to do some, like my other book is about surfing grandmothers. It's a fun picture book, and it's nice to have that as a change. And I have 2 more books coming out with Walker Books, and I'm meeting with Kate Sutherland, the Fremantle Press publisher, soon, and I have another few ideas that I want to discuss with her, but one of them is a 3rd book, and I can't believe I'm even thinking it, because this was 3 years, Lighthouse Girl was 4 years of research, but I think I'm getting a bit faster, so maybe I do have an idea for a 3rd one that I think is a very interesting story. So I'll talk to her and see what she thinks before I commit that much of my life. I'd like to, she's a very wise publisher, so I'd like to hear her opinion on that.
And before we end, what would you like to tell the world about these 2 books that you've written? What would you like to tell them that, that is there anything that they can learn, any life lessons that they can learn from you?
I think, like so many others, I'm distressed that we don't learn from the past. Of course, if people read this and on a smaller scale, rather than if we can avoid war, another war and conflict, I think it starts with just 2 people, instead of being mean to each other, or sometimes you have to accept difference. We're all different, and sometimes you need to be tolerant, and everybody has a bad day sometimes, and rather than get angry with someone, if you can try and understand them a little bit, show some empathy, that on a big scale is how countries go to war, I suppose. It starts with just a smaller scale, I think.
Well, viewers, thank you for joining me here at the National Girls' Choice with Miss Dianne Wolfer, and she's the author for Lighthouse Boy as well as Lighthouse Girl. And you can actually get your copies on Amazon.com or at all leading bookstores. And if you don't have any, please do place an order with them or request. As well as those from the United States, of course, you can also get place the order with Barnes and Noble. And without further ado, please welcome Miss Dianne Wolfer once again to our show, and we'll hope to see her soon in the near future. Once again, I'm Robin Stienberg, and have a good day ahead.
Thank you, Robin.